back down, I'm going to bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's got to be biblical.
This for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on. But now it's war, this gun and foe. CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in their pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forged and flipped. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? Then tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof. Sworn under oath, now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home, now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, they ain't law, they just people, corrupt people. And when the people rise, ain't no system safe. It's Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah. Wait.
Well, who are we going to piss off today? Because I guarantee you this show is going to take and piss somebody off. I hope you guys are checking this out. And if you guys know anybody right now, if you're watching this show, whether you're on Facebook Live, it should be on Facebook Live because we got, once again, the thing lifted, or you're watching us live on YouTube. If you know somebody in Kentucky, they do not want to miss this show. Listen, even if you need to take 5 minutes or something, jump over to Facebook or some of the different platforms, this and that. Hey, if you're in Kentucky, you want to watch this show. Trust me, you're not going to regret it. One thing that we deal with here is educating people on not only the methodologies and things that we see that are wrong within constitutionally and or the corruptness in the family court systems and CPS, let alone the unconstitutionality of every bit of it that is now happening. You know, this movement, since I've been doing this and been doing this show for well over a year now, going on quite a while. Actually, I've kind of lost track of time of it. To change from people not being quiet or being ashamed of telling their story of their interaction with CPS, and now seeing what I'm seeing today of people speaking out, of judges getting arrested, of mass corruption being exposed, of the true pedophiles and the corrupt things in our school systems, especially here in Blount County, Tennessee. It's a complete different world. And here's the thing, our voices are so loud now within the reckoning movement is what we've called it. And to give you guys just an update as far as the federal case, the federal court clerk, did not allow us to file electronically, which the judge in our case gave a court order to do so, which under the ADA, because once again, heart issues don't go out much with a lot of those things. And guys, make sure, I hope you're staying warm tonight. It's cold all over. We are expecting a warm up spell to come through, but stay warm. Take care of yourself and your health. But going back to the court clerk of the federal court of clerks, did not follow the court order. Well, we filed other motions before, so a lot of people have come out and said, well, Gunnar, your federal case is dismissed and all this other stuff. Yeah, because the court clerk failed to follow a court order. We have a motion before the court that it's not really closed, it's dismissed, but the fact that that's going to be, they're going to open this case back up is what they're going to end up doing, because then the court clerk is going to, and I had a conversation, I believe it was the assistant court clerk, of, yeah, they screwed up. They screwed up and only gave us 2 days window to file when we should have had plenty of time to file within the ADA. In other words, technically the court clerk of the federal division violated the Constitution of due process of being able to make our petitions known, as well as the ADA. We were not given that access. So for a lot of people that are saying that out there, oh, it's not dead. It's not dead in the least. Matter of fact, you're going to see it rise from where you think we've been defeated, and it's going to rise and come back 1,000,000 times stronger. Why? There's so much that has been revealed in this case, and it's unbelievable what's been going on even as we're going through. Yes, this week, the local here in Blount County, Tennessee, Tammy Harrington, our goal is to file under Rule 60 because the law changed. They did not allow cross-examination in the court, and they can't take and mess with the evidence because we had the whole thing transcribed. We paid for it. That didn't happen. But Tammy Harrington and everyone involved was actively involved in acts of treason and sedition against the state itself, the state of Tennessee, by violating the state's constitution. Matter of fact, a huge section of the state's constitution. Now, I have conferred once again. A lot of us take and we talk. I talked to Tanya Reguli. I talked to Jessica Saxton. There's a lot of people within CPS Breaking News that, different people. Once again, you don't have to agree with their aspects, but the concept is you got to draw this information. And even if a person brings one thing to better yourself or your case or anything else, it's worth listening to them. But once again, you're going to have to sift through this. Now, we've made this connection once again with CPS and a lot of the history, but this goes back a ways now. We're going to get a little things now. You've heard me talk, and there's this huge movement now across the United States for homeschooling, especially with the revealing of our biggest predators are in our public school systems. Where our kids are not with family puts them at higher risk than them being at home. And CPS will tell you that, oh, well, you're limiting their social development and all these other things. No, it wasn't designed to be this way. Why? When you send your kids to public school, you lose something. You lose your family's traditions, your family's history, your family's heritage, because they can't teach that. Technically by law, because it's discrimination. In other words, I can't teach just about the Jewish faith unless you go to private school. Let me explain this. Certain schools are specialty schools based off of the religion, but they don't teach a lot of your family's history, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything else. Even in the change in history now, with this huge reset in all of our knowledge, with declassification of MK Ultra, JFK, all these conspiracy theories, these things didn't exist. So now we know these things are true. And everybody that said you're crazy, you're a tin hat person, you're I don't want to say it wasn't propaganda, but you're a conspiracy theorist. And that is a word that was created by the CIA when you were getting too close. So a lot of people don't understand the history of that, where they say, well, that's okay. Gunnar's just a conspiracy theorist. Thank you. Because why? we are eventually proven 100% accurate and right. That's the truth. The problem is you don't see what they're seeing because what's hidden, and you've got to learn how this system works, how the propaganda works, how all this stuff works together. And people say, well, why is it so hard for people to take and see these things? And take a quick break. Hey, Chris. Hey, John. And hey, Tammy. Thanks for joining us. And you guys out there that are watching, let's watch this video, and you're going to understand why so many people struggle. Believe it or not, this is why you struggle to understand or see these things that a lot of other people do not see. And this was actually this is one of the reasons they killed one of these hosts in here that you're going to watch this next video. There's a reason they killed him, because he was on to something. Let's watch.
The public school system was set up by fascists on the Prussian military model. They were literally trying to make thoughtless worker drones.
Desk workers.
Yeah.
That's what bureaucrat means.
Yeah. Well, or factory workers.
Correct. That's right.
That in itself wasn't so bad because the country was industrializing. But right underneath that was the idea that while you were doing that, it was necessary to pretty much stamp out or fail to develop anything that would produce any kind of creative entrepreneurship. It's like, okay, the public
schools. This is why we can't see, and the propaganda has been so accepted in our society and in this country, is because we've been taught and programmed it our entire lives. There are a lot of people, especially, when I was growing up, so, coming from Gen X, we heard about JFK and the conspiracy. It had to be more than another person. There's no way that this would work, and so on and so forth. The stuff with MK Ultra, coming to find out that those underground tunnels and everything you guys are hearing about in Los Angeles, that's an old airport where MK Ultra was literally devised and done and abandoned. It was an old Air Force base, and somebody bought it up, the whole Air Force base, and turned it into residential stuff and built over the top. Some of the tunnels were collapsed, some were kept connected. And those are old runway service tunnels. These are the same tunnels that they were planning this out to traffic people. And it's been said over and over again with Epstein, with Diddy. Where do they get these kids? CPS. Every time. Every time, same thing comes up. And this is why more people are realizing this and now saying, oh, I don't want my kids indoctrinated. I want them to be creative. I want them to be free thinkers. And, then you've got other places where you've got judges who go, oh, no, they need to be institutionalized. And we're going to deal with that a little bit later. But there's a story out of Kentucky of a particular judge that this is her opinion. She's actually said it on the record multiple times. She's gotten in trouble for it multiple times, but they still leave this corrupt judge sitting on the bench. Now, we found a pattern in Kentucky that mimics this same pattern that Sharon's going through. My wife up in Kentucky with the stuff that they did with issues with jurisdiction, UCC, JEA. In other words, they didn't get jurisdiction from another state or permission. As a matter of fact, they bypassed it because these things there's a very strict protocol when you're going from state to state that a UC JEA has to be done properly, including the judge signing off, especially if jurisdiction is held over in another place. They can't just assume it or take it, especially when it's going with that case. But now, there's this huge thing to where, like I said, with Harrington, the Rule 60, this and that, we're going to serve Harrington in Blount County, Tennessee with the most powerful Rule 60. And that's because the law changed once again and expose every criminal act they have done and put it on the original record. And they have to take it. They have to accept it. So it's going to put Harrington in a box to basically admit, and if she follows the law, she will dismiss the case, overturn it, and do away with it. But also it's a double-edged sword, because if you follow the law, you're also admitting to the crimes. And so now if she doesn't admit to the crimes at the same time, she picks up another felony charge, because this one is solely on her to make the decision saying, I did not follow the law. I did not follow the state law. Matter of fact, once you reveal it, I broke the state's constitution by having that hearing that I had and bringing you in there. Why? Because, and we've went over this before, and we'll go through it, once again. Tennessee Constitution, Section 1 deals with civil rights, and every state, listen, guys, you need to listen to me very, very, very good. Go look at your state's constitution. It does mimic the U.S. Constitution. You're going to say, oh, well, this will say that if you've broken this state constitution, which they can't get around or bullshit around and say, well, we don't deal with constitutional issues in in this courtroom. Okay, but you deal with your state's constitution in this courtroom because I'm in this state. And they mimic. When you guys red flag them, listen, and I'm telling you how important this is. This is a arrestable felony offense for violating your state's constitution. You hear me? Fourth Amendment's covered in all the state constitutions. Right to a trial by jury. Accusing somebody of a crime and never being presented, as Tennessee puts it, you can't be held accountable or say you've committed a crime, and nobody can accuse you that in a court of law. It's a criminal act. Because that's saying that you did this, like they do in family court, and say, hey, you've done this crime or this heinous crime of abuse and neglect. Go look at your state's constitution, because you can get these judges fired over this stuff. I'm not kidding. Where you can go in and say, you violated your state's constitution by accusing me of that and putting that on the record. Why? I've never been arrested. I have never been indicted. I've never been brought before a grand jury, and well, I haven't been impeached. But those things in the state constitution of Tennessee says these things must happen before you can be accused of a crime. None of it happened. And this is happening all over in all 50 states. And this is how you trap these judges and get them removed. You violated the state's constitution. Why? You accused me, or you gave a criminal code of child abuse or neglect or this or that, which is a criminal code. It's part of the criminal code. Make sure that it's part of the criminal code. And if it is, you just violated the Constitution and you sat up on the bench. You're right, Wet Plants. You can't get your judge fired when they're retired, but you can get it on the record, and you can still go after a retired judge all their personal assets and clean out that retirement real quick and all their property. That's called the Court of Claims. So you file your 1983, which is on the constitutional rights, and then you file in the Court of Claims, and they will do retroactive on those things, retired or this, that. That's all right. Go after their 401k and everything else. All of a sudden, they're broken. They're bagging groceries. You sure can. You have the right to do this. These are the things that are out there, but you got to know how to do it and how to word it. Well, let's get back into the history. Now we've turned around and we've said, okay, we know why everybody's having the wool pulled over their eyes, because of public education. Excuse me. They have been indoctrinated. In other words, you've been told. Once again, they've touched on that. We've touched on the show several times. Several of those things. What do you do next? Well, this is how much somebody pulled the wool over people's eyes here in Tennessee, just so blind that it looked like a legitimate business, thought they were doing the right thing. Well, why take and tell you about it when, well, we could just watch the video together.
In 1924 and 1950, Georgia Tann kidnapped more than 5,000 newborn infants and then sold them to the ultra-wealthy on a nationwide black market child trafficking network. More than 500 of those infants would die before being sold due to abuse, neglect, disease, and malnutrition. Some of the babies were ripped from their mother's arms right off the streets in broad daylight. They were kidnapped from churches and daycare centers where they may have been playing. In most cases, the infants were taken directly directly from hospitals after doctors handed newborns over to people they thought were nurses, but they were actually criminals disguised as nurses, all part of a massive black market that sold babies. High-ranking politicians ensured Georgia Tann was protected so that she could continue selling infants to the highest bidder. And as unbelievable as all of this sounds, it is 100% true. Check this shit out.
Tann pulled off her brazen scheme through operating the Tennessee Children's Home Society, a society which, on the surface, was doing the Lord's work, finding homes for orphaned children. In reality, it worked as a cover for Tann to funnel children into her care, only for her to turn around and sell them on the black market for extreme profit. In the nearly 30 years Tann and the society were in operation, she managed to kidnap and sell an estimated 5,000 babies. These weren't orphaned children placed under her care. They were stolen right from under their parents' noses. How? How could anyone get away with kidnapping and selling children for nearly 30 years right here in America? She did it with help from friends in high places. She took children who came from poor families, for the simple reason that poor families at the time didn't have the necessary resources to search for one of their children should they go missing. If families did file a report, Georgia Tann would have it handled by her close friend E.H. Crump, a powerful tycoon and the so-called boss of Memphis. Crump would make sure the reports of missing children were ignored. She also had an elaborate system for taking newborn babies from hospitals and mental wards, bribing doctors and nurses to help protect the children, and then tell their unsuspecting parents that their baby was stillborn. Tann would take off with the baby, with the child's parents believing their newborn to be deceased. She even had a system for snatching children right off the street. She took children from churches or daycare centers while they played with their friends. They'd end up in the arms of a uniformed social worker under Tann's employ, and they'd never be seen by their birth parents again. Once the children were under her care, and their parents were none the wiser, Tann would wipe their identities and sell them to couples looking to adopt, leaving them completely in the dark about where the child came from by falsifying or destroying their documents. Tann pocketed millions of dollars selling children to out-of-state couples, charging a $5,000 premium on out-of-state adoptions. Almost 90% of her sales, which in this context, sales is a truly disgusting word, went to wealthy couples in New York and Los Angeles who could afford the steep pricing of Tann's services, including actress Joan Crawford, who adopted her twin daughters from Tann. It should be noted none of the adoptive parents had any chance to suspect what they were doing was wrong. On its face, Tann's operation was a legitimate adoption agency. Of course, simply adopting a baby and then never having questions about where that child came from isn't possible. But if the adoptive parents ever questioned Tann about issues that arose, things like missing birth certificates or clearly falsified medical histories, Tann had an answer. If the new parents ever had any suspicion that anything fishy was going on, Tann would threaten them with legal action through one of her major accomplices, family court judge Camille Kelly. Judge Kelly used her position of power to sanction Tann's activities and threaten the adoptive parents with taking away their adoptive children if they continued to make a fuss or ask questions. They would also be threatened with being roped into whatever legal ramifications Tann may or may not have faced. I mean, they did use her services, so technically they were involved in an illegal enterprise themselves. And here was a judge telling them they were complicit. Needless to say, this blackmail coming from the U.S. judicial system itself made a lot of folks go quiet.
There it is, guys. They sound familiar because it's the exact same thing that's happening today. Same thing. CPS workers going in, stealing children. No warrant, no court order, no probable cause. Other than somebody has fabricated something to take their children, or we have gotten a report with this anonymous donation thing, anonymous tipster line. Number one, that's illegal because every person has a right to face their accuser under the federal and your state law. You have a right to do that. It even says it there, says it in Kentucky, says it in Tennessee. So this whole thing with, they're going to hide the identity of the person. How do you know that person's not a caseworker making the report? See, once again, they say, well, mandated reporters are not supposed to be covered. They're supposed to take and tell them. Oh, they cover them because it's all part of a scam. Do you see the part about falsifying paperwork? Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We get to come in. That's why there's a bunch of new proposed laws in a lot of states and a few other things, if it even survives, because Arizona's looking at dumping CPS altogether, as well as other states. It's all coming out that this is mass corruption, and we've been trafficking the same thing, going after and targeting people They don't want to succeed or be independent from that model, from the school system. Once again, not independent thinkers, not business people. They want to beat those people down 100%. And it's a matter of control and manipulation. And under our Constitution, that is not legal. It's not possible. Matter of fact, it says it gives us the power of the people. That, and it's not found in the Constitution. Our power is not found in the Constitution. Let's be clear. It is in the Declaration of Independence. And it even gives us instructions that if we get to the point, which we will, and it says that we will become comfortable with things, but one day we'll wake up and say, hey, this is wrong. And we're to shake those things off, tear down that government, and restructure it, but to make sure we put new things in place that this doesn't happen again. That's Georgia 10. Okay. The most that they got out of that was passing something in the law saying they can't steal your children just for being poor. And we know they still do it all the time. Matter of fact, that's why they target, especially, and this is true, Black communities, to where they pump a bunch of propaganda, especially in those. And you guys can talk about it all you want, but once again, we've looked at the evidence, we've made our decision of hypersexualizing the Black community to where you have multiple babies by mothers, and so a lot of times multiple fathers. This is not, once again, this is one of those things that they were programmed to do, because now that makes good for the trade, for the slave trade, for the child trafficking. Why? Because she's got, let me give you an example. You've got a single Black mom. She's got, we'll say 6 to 8 kids. Okay. Eventually, at some different time, once again, they programmed to go through this. We've gone through the Section 8. We've gone through the several things that once again, they are training generation to generation to do this, to manipulate the system. But then they come and take their kids, and well, then that cuts their benefits. Well, they can't have that, because that's money they get, and they can't, once again, they rely so much on these, so they just obey, they just conform. CPS wants to come in, they're not going to stand up for their rights. They're not going to do this. They're going to let them in the home. They're going to answer the questions. They're going to do this, even though, and on top of it, they don't have the education. Not just the Black community, it's all communities are not educated, even in public schools, to know your rights, to say, you cannot come in my house without a warrant. I don't care who you are. A warrant is required. Matter of fact, we've given you that case law that specifically says, especially CPS workers, anything else other than not having a warrant is coercion or intimidation to enter. It's breaking the law, and it's a constitutional rights violation. But you have got to articulate this stuff in your paperwork. And that includes if you've got a case open now, or in your federal case, in your 1983, this and that, you have to articulate the federal, the Constitution, my Fourth Amendment was violated, under whatever it says in your state, entering without having all these other things. That's a violation of the Constitution. Once again, the state constitution. They're going to hear that more often. And when you accuse a judge or a state worker of criminal activity and you put it on the record, I'm telling you guys, file. Doesn't matter if your attorney does or not. You file to protect yourself, is what I'm going to tell you. And so is everybody else that's any decent. File. Get that stuff on the record. So when it goes to appeal, you don't have an argument. Well, Your Honor, they didn't bring it up during the original case. They didn't file anything, but we did. And that gets you somewhere. Or even if you have to move it to, say, a federal court, now that goes something different. Now, one of the things that we've had to deal with is trying to choose, because sometimes you can get into federal court, but the question is, what do you get into federal court for, or how you do these things? And this is where you have to pick and choose what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. This is part of the strategy. I can get in and move a case because of failure to provide ADA. I can move it over. I can give you so many days to comply, to do a hearing, to say, what have you done back and forth and this and that, and then automatically take it to a federal court saying, I'm not getting my ADA. and you file the proper paperwork for a change of jurisdiction due to failure of ADA, seen and unseen. Then you've got another issue with jurisdictional issues. Hey, the UCCJEA paperwork, it's not in order. None of it's being filed. None of this stuff is going on. All these things. So these are things that can move you into federal court, but what's going to do the most hit? Now, ADA, will that get you? Yes, they will take and get you so far as, okay, now we can accommodate you, or no, they don't have the things to accommodate you, or your ADA was violated during the whole thing. That's a huge issue. Well, then they're looking at fines, so on and so forth. But then you've got the jurisdictional issues that you have to deal with possibly. And then you have to say, well, what are you going to do with the jurisdiction? Well, one keeps it in the federal court. That's what you want to do, because you can file on multiple things. And then the other one could say deal with jurisdiction. That's where you want them to hold on to it and say, hey, this jurisdiction's now messed up. It has to stay in the federal court. So then your case actually gets moved from, and this is before a decision's even made, even during the course of these family court hearings, you can have these violations to move them to federal court, and then you're under a federal playbook, and then it's over, because then all their bullshit stops, because then the federal court becomes the family court. And that's messed up, because they've had to take over jurisdiction because the lower court is basically incapable of providing fair and equal and due process service because of no ADA or there's a jurisdictional issue. So there's a lot of that goes on that you've got to plan accordingly of what you're going to do as far as your strategy. This is why you just can't file everything. You've got to stop and think, which is going to get me farther, what's going to do me better, and what choice do I want to make, and how do I want to use this information to go down the road I'm going to have to go down. Let's watch another conspiracy theory. We picked up a couple other things, and then we're going to get into some of this stuff with Kentucky. And yes, we've got plenty of time. Don't worry about it. But here's another one of those tin hat things. And this is going to go over towards, I believe, old Epstein Island, that's coming back out again, and the list. This still deals with child trafficking. It still deals with CPS, because CPS is where they get the kids for these child trafficking, which, we don't want to talk about that. That's, the news shuns away from that. Where did those kids come from? Where was this? Where was CPS? And now those people are being arrested, prosecuted. We're seeing a lot of that. But watch this one.
What the media doesn't explain about Jeffrey Epstein's real victims is that we are attacked by the government of the United States. I am a real victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. My daughter was a real victim who was murdered in 2017. I was trafficked by the President of the United States, Joe Biden, to Manzanillo, Mexico in 2003. The victims in the media are women who have admitted to trafficking underage victims to Jeffrey Epstein. People seem to overlook that fact because of the way the media presents their propaganda. I am a real victim who is under attack again, and have been under relentless attack since 2019 when I first spoke out. Currently, there's a case in Talbot County, Maryland. Judge Stephen Kehoe is presiding over that case, and along with an attorney named Paul Marshall Long, they have attempted to put me in an insane asylum for a speeding ticket. I'm fighting that. At the time when I was pulled over for allegedly speeding, I was in preparation to attend Anne Arundel Community College to get a paralegal certification in order to show the public through filing lawsuits that my claims are true about Jeffrey Epstein, Joe Biden, the DC Madam, Don McCain, and all the other people that I have explained that I was trafficked to in 100% truth. I am attempting to get people to witness this case to prevent any further harm and damage to my life. This has taken an extreme toll on my physical well-being, my health, my relationships, my future, just for telling the truth. And so I hope people will watch and follow me on Twitter and help to hold these corrupt officials accountable.
Your own government trafficked you. That's hard to hit. I mean, now once again, we've heard from this current administration that they have admitted that the United States government was actively involved in the trafficking of children. And no, all of those children, as some stations had spun this story, were not undocumented and or illegal, whatever you want to call them, children and women. These are American children with the same constitutional rights that you and I have as adults. Those children are protected under the same constitutional rights. And if you'll notice in the story of Georgia Tan, where there was mass manipulation, mass control, CPS workers, come in, steal the children, whatever it is, put them through here. Friends of the courts, once again, going to these family court judges that are just as corrupt, that will continue to blackmail or blackball people to steal their children to do what? Get government money. And then they have the same audacity, some of these different ones too, that especially that are 501c or of that category, nonprofits, that will get this government money, but then spend and look like to the community of, we're doing such a wonderful job, we're helping children. And some of them are called, once again, CASA does a lot of these things. So does CAC centers. They do a lot of promo. We're out here helping kids that are victims and all this other stuff. It's a cover-up. It's propaganda. It's a damn lie. And they're out there, all these high society of all these judges, all these other people out here spending big money. We're raising money for the children. We're doing this. We're doing that. No, you're raising money for child trafficking. And it's right in front of us. It's as plain as day. And you see them advertised in your own communities. This is even, like I said, different galas, different other things that are put on, different promos to raise money as they turn around, but they don't need that damn money. Do you realize what they get paid in government Title IV funding that they're receiving from the state on reimbursement? It's disgusting. They don't need those fundraisers. Well, we need this. No, it's a facade. It's a pitch to make them look to the community like they're doing something. They're doing something good. At the same time, they don't need a dime of that damn money. Oh, well, we need this for snacks, or we need, and what are you giving those kids at those CAC centers and everything else? What's the number one thing you see them give them, especially with dealing with any government agency? You're getting Chick-fil-A, you're getting McDonald's, you're getting Burger King, you're getting fast food, what every kid wants, chicken nuggets, the whole damn 9 yards. Come to find out that we're finding out now, thanks to, everything that's going on in the current administration, it's poison. And it causes the mind to do certain things, and the emotion, it's manipulate, it makes it more easier to manipulate. Where do they find all this stuff out, Gunner? John's got it on here. MK Ultra. They did all those experiments with food, with certain chemicals. That's why they removed fluoride from our water. Why? Because it pollutes the mind. Gives you a cloudy brain. You can't think. You wonder why, man, I just can't seem to concentrate, or you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that. I wonder why. Look at the chemicals you've been on, even in your own water supply. And then what did they do? The stuff that comes out of the tap ain't worth having. It's poison. That's okay. We'll bottle the water and sell you cleaner water. When did water, is not water almost like a human right thing? To deprive somebody of it, or some of these other things? This is necessity for life, is water. And what is Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and everything? They put chemicals in there to where you're less thirsty. It all adds up, and everybody says, well, oh, these are conspiracy. It's the truth. It's called doing math. Ain't no wonder they wanted to change us over to Commie Core math and all those suggestive things and everything else. Why? Because when you add it up in the real world, 2 + 2 = 4. It does not equal 7 minus whatever else and all the other crap that they tried to do. It doesn't exist. It's math is known as a universal language, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't know that, math is the same except for this Commie Core crap, is the same all around the world. We cannot speak the same language or anything else, but we can all agree that 1 + 1 = 2. Now with the Commie Core, now we have confused the American children and dumbed them down for the rest of the world where they can't. We become the slaves. Why? Because other people know how to do math and our children don't. You know what the number one complaint there is right now for colleges? That all incoming students can barely read. Wow. I have a high school education and I don't even know how to read a book. Don't know how to sign my name because I can't do cursive. That means I can't contract. What does that mean? I'm now a government dependent. I have been sold, my soul has been sold to the government as property. And I'm too stupid to function. Just like some of the people out there are considering those, and the government considers those with special needs. You are 100% dependent on the government. You cannot stand on your own. They are trying to take those people and create more of those, more of them, because it makes them more money to where they don't have to go out and get a real job doing physical labor. They make money off trafficking children, and it's little to no effort to make their bank accounts very, very fat. These are the facts. You can do your own research, the whole 9 yards. Now, let's go into another system real quick. We've got a video for that. Foster care. A lot of people say, oh, well, you know, and we've had a lot of people, you know, Barbara Ann, so on, so I think she's been under the weather with her health and a few other things. If I remember this week, I'm going to try and reach out to her. And, you know, she went through, I think it was called Rebecca's House, and was trafficked under religion. And, you know, now understand these things. They didn't have places for kids to go except orphanages. Back in the day when they had no parents, no family to watch after them, this country only had orphanages. There was no juvenile centers. There was none of this. Who created it? They created this problem to make money. 100%. So take a look at this, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, and you're going to love this. But watch this next video. You're going to see about foster care.
And learn new data revealing just how many foster care children are linked to Georgia's sex trade. 11 Alive's Barry Klein Peter has the story.
In this room, we heard new testimony regarding the foster care system as it relates to human trafficking. And those personal stories are what continues to be heartbreaking in all of this.
So it felt like being in prison.
19-year-old Tiffany McLean Camp spoke about a time in foster care. The new mom testified about abuse, medical neglect, sexual assault, and the trafficking she experienced while under the care of the Department of Family and Child Services.
It made me feel like I was a human. It just made me feel like an animal that's locked up in a cage.
Tiffany said she was moved more than 20 times to different homes. She continued to be in DFAC's extended care after getting pregnant. And shortly after having her baby, was forced to live in a shelter because DFACs couldn't find her a home. Tiffany's heartbreaking journey, just one of hundreds, according to a new study from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. NCMEC revealing that from 2018 to 2022, there was a total of 624 incidents reported involving missing foster children, likely being sex trafficked in Georgia. DFAC said they hadn't been able to get a copy of today's findings until the last hour. They said they are reviewing it and will issue a statement.
And learn new data revealing just how many foster care children are linked.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We're watching it all come to light. All come to light. Now we're going to get to the part that's going to piss. It's going to piss about why? Because we break a lot of stories and such here that people don't want to. Yeah, they don't want you to know this stuff. They especially didn't want my wife Sharon to know about it because she's not from Kentucky. She was up there dealing with visiting her dad, and then they kidnapped her children. Well, we've done a little research, and a lot of our team has done a lot of research. And I want to show you, if you guys are from Kentucky, especially this is especially on Madison County, Kentucky. But the fact that we also found the same pattern in several other, well, when we went down to the rabbit hole, we say, hey, this is happening in this county. We go, well, wait a minute, this is a little too common. So we did some research in Kentucky and a lot of those other counties, and we found something really familiar. And we're going to share it with you now. Check this out. This is going to blow your mind, and you're going to say, oh, wow, I don't like this, that. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to take and say hello to, well, let's see if I can get this to expand right here. Welcome, if you look here, to your left in this picture with the dark hair with the hat is Kimberly Carter Blair Watson. She is a family court judge in Madison County. The person standing next to her is Nancy House. Now, who is Nancy House? Nancy House is a local attorney in Madison County, and she was the court-appointed judge, or I'm sorry, the court-appointed attorney to Sharon, my wife. In the thing, is there a conflict of interest here? I don't know, guys. Let's go down the rabbit trail. And once again, this is all public record. Here's the two of them hanging out. Now, pay attention to the faces, because this is going to get fun, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Oh, there they are together. Oh, there's their husbands. Wait a minute, Miss Kimberly Clark. Did you, I'm sorry, Watson, Clark Watson, I think it is. Yeah, I'm sorry, Blair Watson, Miss Walson, Kimberly Walson. Is that your husband who you took over for, that was the previous family court judge that took and was under investigation for a bunch of crooked stuff, and then he stepped down to not be, indicted or a bunch of other trouble and stuff like that, that he was under investigation for things, so he just stepped down? And then you just happen to slide in as his wife, right? And then you get with Nancy House. Now, what did your husband take and do? What was it? Huh? Oh, wait, here's Kimberly. Look, Kimberly Carter Blair Walson is with Lori and this and that. And she's saying, happy birthday to my sister from another mister. Oh, yeah, they've known each other. What does it say? Been through the best of and last times for the past 15 years. This is from 2018, people. So it's 15 years plus another 5. That's over 20 years. 2023 would be 20 years. They've known each other for 20 years. Now, what is this? This is called a conflict of interest, a massive one that was never revealed. So you've got a judge and an attorney that are best buddies, that she's hooking her friend up, okay, with these jobs of being GAL. Miss Nancy House is a GAL or a court-appointed attorney in her courtroom, knowing they're best friends for over 20 years. And they put on a little dog and pony show from even some of their filings, and they don't reveal the fact that there's things. Why? Because my wife is from out of town. They're not going to know this. Whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And you can't say that you did this, but my wife ended up firing Nancy House because she wouldn't file anything or do anything on her behalf or stand up for her rights or actually protect her. There's a reason why. Miss Nancy House has been protecting Kimberly Carter Blair Walson, the judge, and the judge is in the court's best interest. It's her best friend. Now, hold on now. This gets better. I'm telling you, watch this. Oh, sorry, went the wrong way. There they are. There's that one. If you'll notice, when you go through this stuff, look here. See this little gala thing? Remember we were talking about? That's like the 1920s gala and everything else. Now, why is this important? Remember this guy? Remember we went back here? Her husband right here? This guy off to the left, guess what he does? Oh, come on. Guess. Just a little bit, guys. A little bit in here. Help me out here. Guess just a little bit what he does. I'll tell you what he does. He runs the CASA. He left the bench to head up CASA. Conflict of interest much at all? That means that Judge Miss Walson shouldn't even be hearing a single family court case due to one, her friend is in the court and she's been throwing her best friend money and jobs all the time, but her husband is running CASA and heading up in the founding of CASA that's in that particular area. That's a huge conflict of interest. You should never hear another case with this. But they leave her on the bench and nobody's done something. So all they did was do the old shell game. Let me move this around. We're going to promote your husband and let him run this stuff over here while you take over his seat and keep feeding the system. Well, this same pattern of this little circle, like what we're talking about, and of course the players have different roles in this and that, same pattern is in over 50% of the counties in Kentucky. Same pattern. Family court judge, either a friend, they best friends, they grew up together, they never left. There's an attorney, or they work at the clerk's office, or this is going, and it's cover. It's the good old boy system. And then certain ones, hey, we can make more money. Why? Hey, let me open a 501c CAC center. Why? I just hire a bunch of people and all this other stuff. We manage it. We'll get a board of directors to protect everybody, because then it's a board of directors. Nobody actually owns it. But once again, we're nonprofit. But of course, the board all gets their salaries, right? How many attorneys that are in family court systems that have interest in businesses dealing with child trafficking or helping children that they own ownership or private stock in? Conflict of interest. Now, we can go through, and I'll bet you it doesn't take much more to go through there. How many of those CASA events that her husband ran, that she gives her friends, a little bit of money, and I mean, I don't know, is it like church where you're commanded to give 10% for kickback kind of money, but it's a charitable donation? Let me get the thing. Why? Because it's a thing. Lawyers should not, and family court that are defending anything in family court, should not be donating their money towards anything, because it's a conflict of interest. Donating to it, giving thing, volunteering with it. You're supposed to say, hey, you're going to have to separate your professional life from your personal life, and they cannot overlap. Why? Because it's a conflict of interest. But the fact she did not disclose that in court is a criminal act. They hid that from the court, as well as the fact this same judge hates homeschooling. This same judge violated the Kentucky Constitution. Why? She is allowing CPS in Kentucky to accuse Sharon of a criminal act with never being adjudicated, arrested, indicted, or presented, any of that. And that's in the Kentucky Constitution. The fact you accused her of that, you violated the state's constitution when you did that. Why? She's never been convicted, arrested, or anything of anything. And this sounds familiar to all of you guys. This is the same theme, okay? Same issue. You got to attack. Remember, in the beginning of the show, I was telling you, go see your state's constitution, because when you call them out for violating the constitution, let alone the judge should have known, hey, I can't put that on there. Why? You're accusing somebody of criminal activity. You're using a criminal code. You violate the state's constitution, and because they've all participated in this thing, the whole thing's brought upon the court. That's how you articulate this. This is why a lot of other shows, and especially on the Breaking News Network, they'll say, learn their codes, learn their statutes, learn the state's constitution, because you know it's an automatic termination for violating the state's constitution. And when it's clear as a bell, gone. Gone. And how do you do it? You don't go through what? Well, you go, they don't do anything for the Judicial Conduct Board. They don't do anything for this and that. No, but when you take and do an appeal and you ask for part of your reconciliation of what you want, or the type of relief you're looking for, is for the termination of those that violated the state's constitution, and that you're seeking and you're putting them on notice that you are pressing criminal and civil charges against them, and going to the state attorney general and reporting those things. Those are not taken lightly. That is a big difference with the judge. That when you say, hey, my judge violated the state's constitution and this is how they did it, and I'm pressing criminal charges, and failure for you to investigate this and give me back a report on your findings is a criminal act in itself, and I can actually sue the state. It opens them up to liability for failure to investigate a crime. And even if you don't agree with that, you can still go to the federal courts and ask the federal courts, hey, is this a crime? Did they violate their own state constitution and everything else? Why? Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. You're going to have to remember that one. Any case where the state is a party, the Supreme Court or the federal courts have original jurisdiction. A state can't hear it. There are states that do hear some of those. The Supreme Court of your particular state may have a hearing on that to clear your case. But guys, this is the way to overturn your cases, is pointing out the fact, and at the same time, because it mimics a lot of those things, mimic the U.S. Constitution. There's no statute of limitation on constitutional rights violations. You have to put that in there. And from, once it goes through there, that goes pretty much for the state, a lot of the states too. Read your state, go through your own thing. Once again, do your homework. We're pointing you in the right direction of where to do your homework, and read it for yourselves. Do your homework, because if you can get your case overturned, your children back home, and have everybody fired and have them put on a Brady list, that means they'll never serve in public government. They'll never be around children. They'll never be around that stuff. And you have them prosecuted that particular way. And you do your due diligence, and you follow up against this person in court, and you're there for the court. Or I want to be there by Zoom. You can request that from the court. Why? Because you're the injured party. Yeah. Makes a big difference. Now you've got some tools to work with, guys. Now you've got some information that you can take and fight. But guys, look for those patterns, because I have a feeling that same pattern is going on in your county too, because they're just now, unless you're from a big city, Chicago, New York, some of the bigger cities, Memphis, so on and so on, they have a little bit different way. They're a little bit more covered when they get in the inner cities. Why? Because the game plan's different. The bar is raised a little higher. But when you get on the outskirts of the big cities, to these other counties, these other places, and so on and so forth, they tend to do this same damn pattern. And you know what's funny is the same pattern with the people that are raising and giving money to these things, and going to these galas and going to these parties and all the other things that they just flaunt in front of everybody as fundraisers for these things. These are the doctors and the lawyers and this and that are doing donations, thinking they're doing good by the children and by families and everything else, when in all actuality, they're just helping perpetuate child trafficking in their own state and in their own community. Here's the thing. Don't send somebody, and this goes back to a couple other principles. If I find somebody that needs a coat and I put it on somebody else because I don't feel it's my responsibility or whatever else it is, that's on you. For me, if you see somebody going hungry, you feed them. You give them the shirt, as you can without cutting your own throat. It may even hurt a little bit. That's okay too. But to turn around and say it's not my problem, That is what's gone wrong in our society. Then that's been the downfall of our country, is we have forgotten what community and neighborhoods were all about. And it wasn't about anybody asking us or telling us what to do, not like a damn HOA or any of the crazy stuff that you read about, these stories, these horror stories of HOAs being such communist, totalitarian, and say we're even going to break the law because we're an HOA. Listen, even private contracts have to be constitutional. And especially when you're dealing with government entities, whether it's the state, the federal, or whatever it may be, and understanding these CPS workers are also attaching to, when some kind of ruling comes out and it deals with a law enforcement officer or this or that, that's out there, they're going to turn around and they're going to say, well, we follow the same rules as the cops do. And that's where there's a lot of CPS workers. Well, if the cops get to lie, we get to lie. No, they do not. There is only an exception only for law enforcement. But even within those particular guidelines of being able to lie, there's even rules to how they lie. And unless you know those rules, you don't know whether or not they've been broken. This is where most of your life growing up should have been about how to protect yourself against corruption in the system and knowing your rights, and reading, writing, and arithmetic, not political BS about, whether it's this or that or this, pro-ice, negative ice, or this. That doesn't belong in a classroom. It's basic reading, writing, arithmetic, just that simple. Everything else, and once again, learning the history of our country and independent thing, but they don't want you to do that. That's why they've brought politics into the classroom. And no, a teacher does not have that freedom to express themselves that particular way in public education, because it's supposed to be a neutral environment, which it's not been, to where there's zero discrimination, because you cannot pick a side one over the other. Therefore, all of it is supposed to be left out, so to speak. We're neutral. And that has not been the case in our country. Matter of fact, a lot of the school boards, this and that, have allowed these things of freedom expression. That is not the play. And this is where a lot of parents, I don't care, I just send my kids to school, and we understand what they're getting educated. Next thing you know, the kid's coming back is, I believe I'm a cat or a tree or half these other things. And you're over here like, what are you talking about? What is the matter with you? You're talking about, now you've confused somebody. And let alone, there was medical terms for a lot of other things. When people were confused about, am I a boy? Am I a girl? There is a textbook definition. It's called gender dysphoria. That word has been around and that diagnosis has been around for a long time. It's a confusion. And there are people that do get confused once again. And now understanding too, there are real things such as hermaphrodites, people that were born with both sex organs. Those things are a reality, but they're also a rarity. That's one thing we've got to understand. It is not in mass numbers. These are in extreme minorities, and people are abusing and exploiting those that have real medical conditions to justify to get on a wagon or a platform or a stage or a soapbox to be heard. And that is not all right. That's like me turning around and acting like I have, I don't know, I've got Down syndrome, and I don't have. That's not fair to those that do have Down syndrome, that I'm doing that. But I could say, I'm doing it to bring awareness to that. That's an insult. That is not where our compassion lies. Our compassion is, and if you've ever met somebody, and I always tell somebody this, especially with round-faced Down syndrome, and this is every round-faced Down syndrome I've ever met. Yes, I had a family member that has that condition. But they are the sweetest, most caring person. They are so misunderstood. They don't know how to communicate, but they are the most loving, caring, touching feel. I mean, they have so much love and things. They don't know how to express it properly within our society. but they're the most caring people in the world. And people say, well, this, oh no, I've seen them where they, yeah, because they've not been allowed to be who they are. When you repress something like that, the next thing that comes out is anger, frustration, and violence. But you've triggered them and trained them to be that way. They are not naturally that way. And once again, this has to do with having a loving, supporting home, having a loving, supporting parents, and parents doing their due diligence to understand the uniqueness of their own child, which every parent does. But those with special needs take a little bit extra. They're a little bit different parent. And not all parents are cut out for doing it. And I'm sorry, they're just not. Because they can be and can become overwhelming. And this is why community should come together. Now, with the member of my family there was a lot of family support. There was a lot of community support. And once again, there was a lot of things that, once again, the child, just did not know certain things. The child is older, but there was a lot of confusion. Now, this can also happen with kids that have autism, or what we call on the spectrum of autism. They get confused. They don't process. They have processing disorders. These are things we don't teach. We don't give that, let alone CPS doesn't give a damn rat's ass about none of it, and doesn't give the first inkling of ADA when it comes to children, because they are unequipped. They are basic social workers. They are not specialists to dealing with special. Well, I've had a class, or I've had a video I've watched. Let me tell you something, man. Dealing with those type of kids and this and that takes a lot of specialized training, a lot of supervision. This is why we're finding out in public schools all over the place, these kids are being abused and being beat in these special needs. Back in my day, they called it special education is what they called it. But in those classrooms, those kids are being abused. They ain't being taken care of. They ain't being educated. They ain't none of that going. They're having the crap beat out of them, or they're being molested, or this has happened, or that's happened. This is why cameras in the court or in the classroom and everywhere. We have too much technology. Public school gets so much damn money that somebody needs to get fired or something off their damn job and pay for cameras in every damn classroom and everywhere they take and go. And parents have the ability to forward, fast forward, rewind, and log in as their child and watch their child if they want to all day long to make sure nothing's happened or nothing else is going on. And if anything, send a marker right there as I'm watching it. Call the principal. Look what this one's doing to my child, and have that availability of that stuff. The same should go for anybody working in government. I want total transparency and accountability. Where's it at? The technology's there. You spend enough money on everything else. We've got all this fancy SWAT equipment and everything else, but what do we have to protect our children? You can't put cameras in schools. Can't give me a log on to take a turn around and watch what is going on with my kid to see whether or not they're being abused, or whether or not they're eating, or that, oh, well, you're dealing with everybody else's privacy and everything. Oh no, it's public, baby. Welcome to public school. There is no privacy in public school. It's called public for a reason. It's no different than being out at the park. You have no intention of privacy, except for the bathrooms, obviously, which is what you should have. But even some schools are dealing with that, with boys and girls switching bathrooms and stuff. That, we've gone through that, and some states are still dealing with some of that. Not our kids, man. Not our damn kids. Not a damn chance. Give them the basics and then, but once again, they don't want that. They want you to feel numb this up for you at a young age. You're numb. You're immune to it. Now it's much easier to get away with stuff. Why? We've seen the same thing growing up. Compared to what I went through, compared to what I watched my children, all three of them get raised and out of school, things changed, and they weren't for the better. They became numb to certain things. This wasn't a problem. That wasn't a problem. Listen, I'm going to blow your mind, but I was registering one of my children from middle school to high school here in Blount County. We're standing in line, and I'm there with my parents. You had some kids, oh, I could do it by myself. Hey, great, whatever. But it was the topic of two young girls in a group of three that was standing in the next aisle because we were lined up to get the kids' computers and sign off because they had to sign off on a bunch of stuff and get all their schedules and stuff. New to the high school. Once again, this was ninth grade academy because here they have a separate building for just ninth grade. Two girls turned around and said, you need to come over to my house because I've got some stuff over here because we're in high school now. And boys don't just want, sex. They like butt stuff, and you don't get pregnant that way and everything else. So it doesn't hurt so bad, and you get used to it, and you become, some of the popular and this and that. One girl was inviting herself because her mother had bought her things to fix that area, to expand it to where it wasn't that big of a deal. Was that highly inappropriate? Yeah. I truly believe that's something no ninth grader should have we'll call it what it is, a butt plug. That is ridiculous. Let alone to allow the promiscuous activity of those particulars. But once again, that's the world they live in. And then you have to train your children of, hey, you guys ain't got none of this other stuff because, you're the decent parent. And you have those open conversations with your kids. Hey, it ain't nothing like that. But hey, if you do choose to do those things, you train your kids, you're not overshadowing. Hey, make good decisions. Remember, actions have consequences, and be careful who who you're involved with, because it's not always very nice. As we've all seen or experienced. The fact of, having an intimate relationship with somebody and then turn around and backfiring. That didn't go over too well, or man, it was really, really, really bad. And the other person is just head over heels in love. There's a lot of that stuff out there. And there are people that get addicted to new relationships. There's all sorts of things out there, man, but you have got to watch yourself. You got to protect your children. But once again, the schools ain't going to do nothing with it. They could care less. Why? There's even schools that have nurseries. Listen, we have such a teenage pregnancy issue because they're already popping out the babies. That's automatic CPS money right there, baby. Oh, yeah. Oh, an underage girl, this and that. Oh, that's a criminal. Oh, no, you're a bad parent. Your kid got knocked up, or your kid knocked somebody up. Oh, CPS has got to come in now. Why? You weren't a good parent. It happens. They look for a way in, but they're creating the problem in the public schools. That's why everybody is pulling out of public schools, because they're realizing oh, wait, this has been going on there. And then they actually look at their kids' education and some of the stuff that's been going on, and it flips them the hell out, because now all of a sudden, oh crap, all this stuff's going on. Now they're overwhelmed. And then the parents finally take an active role in their child's education, realize that things have been done wrong, and they pull their kids out of school. Then you have judges like, Miss Walson, that hates homeschoolers because she loves to have kids program. I wonder why, Miss Walson. Is it because is it got something to take and do with the fact that it feeds your machine and pads your pocket and goes and has all sorts of money to do these things because of all the funding and the cuss-up number and the bonds and everything else that you guys take out on these things to become multimillionaires over these things? And it gets paid. Once again, public record. You can go look up any judges and see what they get paid. Matter of fact, we broke a story on Blount County, Tennessee, that we actually gave away. Yeah, that was kind of fun. The actual salary of the local sheriff, of Judge Harrington, and I think it was the district attorney and a few others. This is public record, and published it. And they turn around and they go, holy crap, our sheriff makes, I think it was close to $250,000 a year. For what? You've already sold out. The sheriff of the county's already sold out to the state and not protecting the people. Well, why? Because you won't prosecute, you won't go after state employees. You wouldn't even take an investigative crime. Your whole office wouldn't do it. Neither would the district attorney. Neither would the city. Why? Because it's a mafioso type gang mentality. And until you hold them accountable and all of a sudden you take their jobs and once again, you get them fired and then you sue the hell out of them and it costs them a ton of money. People say, well, what do you expect to do? You don't think they're going to come after you after all this? I guarantee you, if you want to come after me, you're going to learn a damn lesson because, there's a lot of things too. The numbers also going to change on that lawsuit big time. And we'll get to that a little bit later on in another show. Once that becomes light, like I said, there's a lot of things we're working on, but man, we have been slammed. And I want to give a huge shout out, like I said, to the team that we've assembled, working on this and some of the sources and the people and the resources. Man, a huge thank you from both Sharon and I for everything you guys are doing. I can't tell you enough. Once again, I will respect their privacy with those particular things. But we've also had a recent case to where somebody has taken and recently gone through and manipulate, like I said, kind of got close to, like I said, Sharon manipulated that thing, got what she wanted, and then took a chunk of something, put things out in the public to try and slander me. And this has happened more than once. And the thing that I guess that hurt the most after all of it was one of these people. She is sitting at home this evening with her newborn baby in her own home. And during the course of everything come up, because if you guys remember, if you've been following for a while, we broke the story on the dirty drug tests and everything else to steal children, especially in big cities and those particulars that we shared, we educated you guys. We put a bunch of stuff out on Facebook. Even they were, CPS was bribing nurses and other things and stuff like that to, pick and choose children like a shopping list. Hey, here a kid comes in, give them, hey, they're kind of low income, this, that, let's give them a dirty drug test. They knew enough to ask for a secondary drug test to stop it. And then finally, when it came back negative, and they did a separate one once they got out of the hospital, this person's sitting at home with her family, with her newborn baby, after contacting me and my wife on what to do in a panic, because they were going to take that child over the fact that there was a dirty drug test and they didn't know what to do. Now, we didn't give legal advice. We just simply said, here's your options. These are the things you can do. These are the things once again, these are your choices. I'm going to educate you on your options. What you decide to do is your thing. Made the right choices. And I believe is pursuing a lawsuit against that particular hospital because they were going to call CPS in and steal that baby. And somebody to stab you in the back like that is so disheartening. And people say, well, Gunnar, how come you don't get so upset or this doesn't bother you? Because it's not about the dumbass parents sometimes. And I'm going to put that bluntly and as kindly as I can. Nah, fuck it. I don't give a shit. People that are dumbasses, that it's not the kids' fault that their parents are dumbasses and do stupid shit, especially stabbing somebody in the back that actually brought your baby home and not in CPS custody. It's not that kid's fault. That kid needs to have the opportunity to be there regardless of they're a crappy person or not. It's still their right under the Constitution for people to raise their kids, even though adults and people do stupid stuff. People, and this goes for the system and everything else, people are stupid. They just are. We're all stupid at one time or another. If we're honest with ourselves, we've done some dumb shit in our lives. Some of us had to pay dearer consequences than the others. Some of us had it rougher than the others. But it also formed us a lot of those things too, of who we let close to us and who not. If you've got somebody shoving in hard and wanting to be part of your life or you to be part of their life, like really, really fast, please proceed with caution. And as we did an older show, and we may come back around to this once again, about boundaries and circles and why they're so important. And, I saw something the other day that kind of blew my mind, because we've all heard this, that blood is thicker than water, and people have manipulated that saying to say your family is more important than anything else. Once again, that's a phrase that's been manipulated. And what it talks about, and I'm going to get the bits and pieces, and you guys go look this up, and I really want you to look at it and research it, is the original saying. It actually says that the blood of the covenant is much stronger than anything else. In other words, in the story of that saying, those that are believers, that we get to pick and choose our own family, because once again, if those of you that are believers, the belief system is that we are no longer our own. We no longer belong to our family. We belong to a much different type and a bigger family. And those things don't exist anymore. Why? Because it's been replaced. And we're getting a lot more information out there, and with the knowledge of, hey, I've heard that before, didn't know that. And little things like that catch my ear, and just like, wow, that makes a whole lot more sense. That makes more sense as we grow up, that just because they're family, and somebody's really crappy and this and that, doesn't mean I have to tolerate what they do. Why? Because it's about a whole different circle. It's about a bigger and a higher purpose, and that we actually get to pick and choose who our family, who we call family, because, there's some people that it's, I'll put it this way. Many of you that, if you've served in combat, one thing that I've always noticed is those are your brothers, your sisters, the ones you've been in through some things. And this was especially prevalent within Vietnam, because that was a messed up war. And the people that had a bond, and still, or even World War II, those type of people, or served on a ship together, there'll always be, a bond there of that you can't take away. And if you ever need anything, even though they have their own lives, they will drop everything they have when you holler. And that's what true family is. And trust me, I've had family when you thought you could count on them, or do this and that. Matter of fact, a lot of my personal history was, a lot of my family was really shitty, was very self-serving, and used people, and in many ways abused people, and would use a lot of those things, like saying that blood's thicker than water, I'm family, you can't do nothing about it. There's a big difference of, you can't change your parents, you can't change your brother or sister. Those are family. But at the same time, if they're toxic or anything else, it's in your best interest of you and everybody else is not to go down with them. Is to stand there and be the hand to reach out to them, to help them and help them up, or help them through those things. But if they won't help themselves, you got to protect your own, especially when you have your own family, your own kids. Those are the circles we're talking about. Don't let somebody so close to your family that they know too much, and then they turn on you, stab you on the back, and then you've got a bunch of personal stuff out there, or information they think is personal. It's kind of a joke, especially when they come up with it, because we've always been extremely, especially if you follow me for a while, we've been extremely transparent on our case and what was done to us, tremendously. That, generally we've had those conversations. Why? Because if I can educate somebody, there's no shame, because it was all bullshit. It was a frame job. Every damn bit of it from the very beginning. Why? Because if the law would have been followed, fruit from a poisonous tree would have applied. This would have applied. Hell, they would have never even done. Once again, the actual thing that they were turning around and trying to frame me up with violates the state's constitution. So that can't be, once again, that's not. So you had to break all these laws and actually put all your jobs and your livelihoods on jeopardy, that you hated me so much. You had to put all that on the line. That's the cost you're going to have to pay. And there's a possibility, if convicted, and I'm going to put this very clearly so somebody doesn't say, oh, you're going after a judge or this. No, let me make it clear. Constitutionally speaking, if you are found guilty of treason and sedition by a military tribunal or anything else, And the punishment you're giving, which we will be pushing for the entire way, is to cost you your damn life, to make sure you never destroy another human being's family ever again. Am I threatening a judge? No, I'm saying your actions have consequences, and the Constitution and the federal law is extremely clear when it comes to this topic, as it does also for your cases. There's and a lot of people will say also, and I'm glad you brought that up. Let me see if this I ride Central Chemist. I think I got that Central Chemist. I'm sorry, looking there for a second. I agree with you 100% with what you're saying. It's family events, because when DHS or CPS gets involved, you're going to have two sides of your family. And even once again, I don't deal with much of mine, but I know from personal experience, my wife's side of the family has been kind of divided on some things up until it started happening to them. And then all of a sudden they're blowing up somebody else's phone. You know what I'm saying? Families, friends, everything. I mean, because this doesn't take long before CPS touches people's lives, man. And you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. It's especially when you got baby mama issues, baby mama drama, and accusations going around, and you're not together. And there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of so on. It's anger and bitterness and everything else, because they're used to manipulating people, and maybe they caught somebody got knocked up on person, on purpose to get money for doing nothing. Generational curse. Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah, and it should end. And I'll agree with you in the comments here of saying that, it's those are the ones, the alchemists are the ones that take and break the generational curse, the trauma, the pain, and the abuse ends with us. That should be what we should be all doing for our children and the next generation, is to give our kids a better life than what we lived. 100%. That's just real, like I said, and that's what we should all be searching for. Now, I don't know why or what's going on with Facebook. I'm seeing nothing but comments from YouTube. We've had this problem before. I'm going to have to talk to the producer about that, because last week we were having Facebook comments come through, and now we're not having anything come through on the Facebook comments. I don't know why. But guys, it's not that I'm ignoring you. Please, if you're still watching and you're on Facebook, they're not coming through on the show. This is why we've pushed a lot of people to go to the YouTube channel, because it does come through, and actually works pretty good. But there's something where we possibly have to fix with that. But yeah, we should be doing better by our children. Our children should do much better. But at the same time, we have to remember something. And I'm going to explain this, that you had to deal with, and I forgot what generation it is, but like, my grandparents, and then my parents were, the 50s, 60s, they had kids during the baby boom, that was the 80s, so on and so forth. But coming out of World War II, we had so much surplus and so much wealth in our country, and people did so well after World War II in this country, economically, that we could afford everything. I mean, they were very wealthy. They were able to, send their kids to college, pay for a house, pay for a car, have two cars. Several of these things had work an average job, and there were even jobs right out of high school that people could go run into and make a living off of, what they just the basic things they had, because there was such a need for work. And a lot of that is gone now. The computer age has taken over for a lot of things. But how is our world a better place? Because here's the thing, CPS is more powerful today than it's getting as bad as Georgetown. Only the thing is, it's not just to one little town or one little state. It's now a disease that has spread all over this country. But our lawmakers and all you guys out there are doing such a great job of speaking up and speaking out, that it takes in. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have done such a wonderful job, and I'm so proud of you guys out there to get your stories out there, not be silent, start figuring out stuff in your cases, holding these people accountable. That's what's been doing this and changing this movement and regaining. This is why Arizona is looking at shutting down CPS altogether once again, the second time. There's other states that are considering the same thing. The family courts are being exposed, the corruption, the kickbacks, the trafficking, all these other things. Listen, they're listening and they're finding ways to do things, but they talked about finding corruption and this and that. Now that you guys have seen this where it's been covered up for, sheriff's office won't investigate crimes for CPS workers. A lot of you have reached out to the FBI or the DOJ and this and that. There are some investigations that are running around. Like I said, they are doing a full internal audit, including of the FBI. The DOJ, they are looking at their own people within of why aren't these cases getting heard and what's going on. And they're getting certain people's attention to where it's opening investigation even into those departments. So guys, bravo to you guys that are doing that. And I can't tell you how proud I am of you guys for doing that. Like I said, coming together, man, love on each other just a little bit. Now, like I said on that, and catch us next week. We'll see where we're at with some of the investigations, some of the other stories. But I hope this has helped you guys. And like I said, if you know anybody that's in Kentucky or even in your own state, look for this pattern. Judges, GALs, these are done. Do the research, see if their buddy. Listen, they're dumb enough to put this stuff on social media. And once you have that stuff, because I also know that this same judge and this same attorney has got several cases on their docket. I've already researched it where they're all involved again. Madison County, Kentucky, you better wake up because you've got mass corruption. And if that was not revealed and you didn't give permission, that's enough to remove that judge and that's enough to file. But the more you file on this judge and you press criminal charges on these things saying, hey, they didn't disclose this relationship and now it's a huge conflict of interest. But now look at the actions they've done so far, like they've done in my wife's case. Miss House wouldn't do anything. Matter of fact, freaked out and shut down, and then she ended up, firing her, and then she also withdrew. But of course, that's going to piss off the judge because that's her best buddy, right? Know your enemy, guys. Do your homework, do your own research, listen attentively for those things that may work for your case. See how you can apply it. Nobody's got a one size, and nobody's going to do this for you. Here's the other part. It's all about doing your own homework. Catch us again next week, same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday. Gunning for CPS. And if you don't follow me on Facebook, follow me there. And everybody that's asking for TikTok, if you don't know, nope, they banned me. Why? For misinformation. Will we be filing a federal lawsuit against TikTok once this is all over? You can bet your bottom dollar it wasn't misinformation. Why? Because we just won a case on it. And that one's going to hurt. See you guys. Take care of each other. Don't forget to share that information. And we'll see you again next week. Have a great week. Stay warm.
System cracks, red tape, winds tight, but the spirit won't break, even in the night. From the ashes, the cry gonna rise up strong. With every heartbeat, it fuels the song. Corruption crawls, spreading like a fire. But passion burns hotter, crawling up higher. The system ain't ready for the storm that's us. One by one, we're breaking their rust.